Today, we journey into one of the most fascinating transformations in ancient history as we explore the victory of autocracy over a once vibrant republican system. In this narrative, we examine how a delicate balance between the venerable Senate and an emerging, powerful figure known as the Princeps shifted dramatically over time. Imagine a world where centuries old traditions met the decisive force of military might. A world in which the Senate, guardian of Rome's proud heritage, shared power with an esteemed leader whose authority grew with each passing battle. This transformation was not abrupt. Rather, it was a gradual evolution fueled by necessity, ambition, and the relentless pressures of an expanding empire. At its onset, the appointment of the ruler combined senatorial decrees with military acclamation, merging the wisdom of the past with the urgency of present challenges. Over time, however, the scales steadily tipped as the princeps consolidated power and centralized administrative, legislative, and judicial functions. Our exploration today reveals how each shift in responsibility helped pave the way for a singular autocratic rule. By tracing these steps, we gain insight into how immense political change can arise from the interplay of tradition and innovation. This journey not only illuminates the evolution of Rome's governance, but also offers a timeless lesson about the nature of power, reminding us that even the most established institutions can transform under sustained pressure. Prepare to delve into a storied past, where history and progress converge, reshaping an entire civilization through the victory of autocracy. Let us now embark on this remarkable journey with clarity and curiosity, uncovering the secrets of a transformation that continues to inspire modern reflections on leadership and governance. Our investigation will reveal hidden insights and unexpected parallels indeed. Long before autocratic rule dominated Rome, the Principate emerged as a dual system blending military acclaim with senatorial endorsement. In those early years, power was shared between the honored traditions of the Senate and the dynamic force of the legions. Leaders could be recognized either through a formal decree by the Senate or by the enthusiastic support of the soldiers, a process that celebrated both old traditions and the demands of an ever-growing empire. This creative arrangement ensured that legitimacy was derived from two sources: the collective wisdom of Rome's long-standing political institution and the raw energy of military might. Emperors were expected to honor the values of the Republic even as they demonstrated the resolve to lead during turbulent times. The arrangement balanced respect for ancient customs with the reality of military necessity, creating a system that was as innovative as it was traditional. It was a time when the Senate's voice carried significant weight, and military victories were as important as political rituals. Such dual authority provided a safeguard against unilateral decisions, ensuring that both civic pride and strategic acumen were valued. As challenges mounted and Rome expanded its borders, this balanced framework began to show signs of strain, hinting at the future shifts that would lead to centralized power. The fusion of senatorial and military approval allowed Rome to adapt to unforeseen crises while preserving its heritage. This period set the stage for significant changes, marking a turning point that indeed set the stage for significant changes. Central to our narrative is the evolving role of the Senate in appointing the emperor, a process that vividly illustrates Rome's shifting balance of power. In the early Principate, the Senate was entrusted with conferring imperium and tribunician powers, the very foundations of Roman magistracy. Both a formal senatorial decree and the military's acclamation served to validate a ruler's authority, reinforcing a system that celebrated both political tradition and martial valor. The Senate, regarded as the guardian of centuries-old customs, meticulously reviewed candidates to ensure that the new leader embodied the gravitas required to manage the state. This dual process not only lent legitimacy, but also provided stability by intertwining the will of Rome's elite with the loyalty of its soldiers. However, as time passed and challenges intensified, the inherent balance began to erode. Emperors starting from the reign of Carus found that the traditional senatorial involvement in selecting the ruler could not keep pace with the demands of swift and decisive action. Gradually, the Senate's once pivotal role became increasingly ceremonial, serving simply to endorse decisions already made by the rising autocratic force in the person of the Princeps. This shift reflected both the practical needs of an expansive empire and the emperor's determination to consolidate power for the sake of efficient governance. By witnessing this transformation, we gain insight into how political necessities can subvert long-standing traditions, paving the path for the extraordinary rise of centralized power. These developments redefined leadership in Rome, as the Senate's influence waned while the Princeps' authority steadily expanded to encompass all aspects of statecraft. Together, these changes mark a turning point where old systems gave way to a new order, built on undeniable autocratic might. Another pivotal turning point in Rome's evolution was the gradual erosion of the Senate's administrative power. In the early Principate, the Senate oversaw essential functions such as public provisioning, law enforcement, and the maintenance of monumental public works, including aqueducts and roads. Senior senators, acting as curators, managed these critical tasks with diligence and care, ensuring that Rome's infrastructure reflected its storied heritage. Yet over time, the emperor began to interfere directly in these administrative matters. Recognizing the need for more efficient centralized control, the Princeps established new offices and appointed loyal officials to manage key sectors. Roles such as procurators and prefects emerged, assuming responsibilities that once belonged solely to senatorial officers. This reorganization led to a marked decline in the Senate's direct influence over state affairs, as the emperor's appointees became the true executors of policy. Under leaders like Septimius Severus, traditional senatorial positions were systematically phased out in favor of imperial appointments. The transition was not merely an administrative adjustment, but represented a fundamental shift in political authority. By transferring duties like provisioning, policing, and public works to a network of imperial officials, the ruler ensured that central power would eventually eclipse the old republican framework. The move also streamlined governance, allowing for quicker responses to crises and more effective resource management. Today, this evolution stands as a testament to the dynamic nature of political power, a metamorphosis driven by both necessity and vision. Through this transformation, the centralized authority of the Princeps took root, setting Rome on a path toward autocratic rule that would reshape the empire for generations. This move exemplified a bold reimagining of power. In essence, the transfer of administrative power marked a turning point that not only improved efficiency, but also symbolized the irreversible rise of imperial dominance. Thus, Rome's governance was transformed. An equally significant dimension of Rome's transformation was the shift in fiscal control from the traditional aerarium to the direct oversight of the imperial treasury. Initially, the Senate managed the aerarium, a treasury built on revenues from Italy and the senatorial provinces, reflecting a long-established fiscal tradition. However, as the empire grew more complex, the Princeps recognized that direct control over financial resources was essential for effective governance. In 44 AD, the emperor began appointing quaestors to manage portions of the treasury for fixed terms, a move that gradually reduced the Senate's role in fiscal matters. Under Nero's rule, this practice evolved further. Ex-praetors were promoted to the rank of prefects, assuming greater responsibility in managing Rome's finances. Over time, revenues once channeled to the aerarium were redirected to imperial coffers, transforming the traditional treasury into a functional municipal chest, serving Rome's immediate needs. This fiscal reorganization not only enhanced the efficiency of resource management, but also symbolized the broader transfer of power from the old republic to a centralized imperial authority. By consolidating financial control, the Princeps secured the means to swiftly mobilize resources during crises and to implement expansive public works projects. The shift in fiscal policy marked a decisive step in the evolution of Roman governance, merging administrative innovation with the practical requirements of an ever-expanding empire. In doing so, the empire embarked on a new phase of statecraft, where economic stability and centralized accountability became the cornerstones of power. This transformation in financial management remains a compelling example of how essential fiscal reforms can underpin broader political change, echoing through the annals of history and inspiring contemporary debates on governance and fiscal responsibility. Thus, the shift in fiscal control irrevocably altered the course of Roman administration. This reorganization firmly secured the foundation for modern management. Across Rome's vast territories, the administration of senatorial provinces underwent profound change. In the early Principate, these provinces were governed by officials appointed by the Senate, commonly known as proconsuls. This arrangement ensured that local governance reflected traditional Roman practices deeply rooted in senatorial oversight. Over time, however, the central authority of the emperor expanded, and his choice of representatives increasingly supplanted the traditional proconsular system. Imperial procurators emerged to oversee not only the collection of revenues, but also the day-to-day administration of the provinces. Their role extended beyond financial management. They implemented policies and maintained order, thereby strengthening the direct influence of the central government. As the emperor's interest in consolidating power grew, the distinction between senatorial and imperial provinces began to vanish. Gradually, all provinces came under uniform imperial control, marking a decisive shift in Rome's administrative structure. The transformation of provincial governance illustrates how a once decentralized system was reformed in favor of efficiency and centralized oversight. This evolution not only streamlined operations, but also diminished the traditional prestige of senatorial authority in the provinces. Ultimately, the reorganization of provincial administration played a critical role in reinforcing the autocratic nature of the imperial system, a change that would resonate throughout Roman history and leave a lasting legacy on the structure of governance. This comprehensive reorganization not only enhanced provincial efficiency, but also marked a turning point that redefined central control across the empire. In effect, these reforms solidified the emperor's grip on power, while marginalizing senatorial authority. The evolution of Rome's political structure extended deeply into the legislative and judicial realms, fundamentally altering how laws were made and justice was administered. In the early Principate, legislative authority was exercised by public assemblies and later largely by the Senate, whose decrees held significant weight. Over time, however, the emperor began to issue his own edicts and decrees, gradually assuming the power to legislate independently. This shift was facilitated by the decline of customary legislative practices and the rise of imperial constitutions that carried the force of law throughout the empire. Concurrently, the judicial system underwent significant reorganization. Traditional courts, once presided over by praetors, began to yield authority to new judicial bodies established under imperial command. Officials such as the praetorian and city prefects assumed crucial roles in overseeing legal disputes and criminal cases, increasingly acting under the direct mandate of the princeps. As appeals and decisions became centralized under imperial oversight, the Senate's role in adjudicating justice diminished steadily. This transformation not only streamlined the legal process, but also ensured that the emperor's will was the ultimate source of both legislative and judicial authority. By consolidating these functions, Rome moved away from its republican past toward a system where centralized power defined governance. The comprehensive reorganization of legislative and judicial functions stands as a powerful example of how the quest for efficient control can override traditional institutions. In effect, the change reduced the multiplicity of voices in lawmaking to a single authoritative source, paving the way for an era of unified rule that resonated across every corner of the empire. Ultimately, this comprehensive transformation marked a decisive departure from fragmented authority, establishing a single, centralized source of power that influenced every aspect of Roman life, from law and order to the very nature of citizenship, ensuring stability through unified governance. Despite the growing centralization of power, tension persisted between the Senate and the princeps. As the emperor's authority expanded, many senators, still proud of Rome's ancient traditions, became determined to protect their historic rights and privileges. Although appointed by the princeps, they maintained an independent spirit, questioning decisions that diminished their legacy. This friction was not merely administrative, but represented a broader struggle between continuity and change. Some senators clung to established customs, viewing imperial reforms as a threat to Rome's venerable traditions, while others accepted the new order. Ultimately, this tension highlighted the complex dynamics of power and legitimacy in Rome, where the quest for unified leadership often conflicted with enduring senatorial pride. The interplay of cooperation and conflict added a dramatic twist to the political evolution of Rome, underscoring the challenges of reconciling old values with emerging autocracy. This dynamic struggle vividly illustrates the enduring tension between past and future. In concluding this exploration of Rome's remarkable transformation, we witness a vivid portrait of a civilization in constant evolution. The journey from a collaborative republican order toward absolute autocracy stands as one of the most defining shifts in Roman history. Over the centuries, the gradual erosion of the Senate's roles in administration, fiscal management, legislation, and justice paved the way for centralized power held by the Princeps. Every change, from public provisioning and the restructuring of legal systems to the reallocation of financial resources, contributed to an environment where a single ruler could command the entire state. This transformation was not executed in a single stroke, but was the cumulative result of incremental reforms, each responding to the challenges of an expanding empire and the need for swift decision-making in turbulent times. What makes this historical process so compelling is the interplay between the old and the new. On one hand, the venerable Senate represented centuries of tradition, embodying Rome's rich legacy of civic participation and collective wisdom. On the other, the rising autocratic ruler harnessed military strength, administrative innovation, and fiscal control to reshape governance. This delicate dance between continuity and radical change ultimately redefined the nature of political power in Rome. The Senate's diminishing role serves as a reminder that even time-honored institutions can transform when confronted with evolving realities. This evolution carries timeless lessons, teaching that centralized authority, while sometimes necessary for unity, may also marginalize important voices and traditions. The legacy of Rome's shift toward autocracy resonates far beyond its ancient borders, offering modern societies valuable insights into the balance between heritage and centralized power. Moreover, the process underscores the inevitability of change in the face of new challenges, reminding us that institutions must adapt or risk obsolescence. Reflecting on these sweeping reforms, we see that the victory of autocracy was a complex achievement arising from practical reforms and visionary leadership. This rich historical legacy invites us to ponder the true nature of power, encouraging us to examine how shifts in governance continue to shape societies even in modern times. It reminds us that while centralized rule can bring about order and efficiency, it may also suppress the diverse voices that contribute to a vibrant cultural heritage and dynamic political discourse. In summary, Rome's evolution from a mixed republic to an autocratic powerhouse exemplifies the transformative impact of concentrated authority, a lesson that continues to resonate.